Życzymy Państwu przyjemnej podróży.
Dzień dobry Państwu. Witam
Good
serdecznie
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome at the meeting. I was inspired by this teaser that you could watch a while ago, that it is an invitation for a journey. So I would like to invite you to a journey to Finland. And I hope you would like to go back to Finland again and again. This is the panel discussion, the state that works, the educational policy of Finland. Publication by Professor Wojciech Woźniak was called The State That Works about Finland's politicians, and it was an inspiration for us. And let me introduce my wonderful guests. To the left, Ambassador Päivi Laine, Ambassador of Finland to Poland. She worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs since 1992, and now she's the Ambassador of Finland to Poland. Earlier, she worked as the ambassador in Ukraine and the visiting ambassador to Iraq, and this is her second mission in Poland, 2007-2012. She was the deputy expert in the embassy in Poland. She is fluent in Polish, so it is a nice gesture for us. And ambassador promotes cooperation between Poland and Finland, and we are very happy and grateful for that. Professor Wojciech Woźniak, the author of 5 books and more than 70 reviewed scientific articles in 2012, he published a book, The State That Works, about Finnish public politicians. In Lodz, he published Football Fandom and Collective Memory Global Perspectives. He is the member of the Polish and Finnish Westmark Society Sociological Association in Germany, Estonia, the Czech Republic, another country. He was lecturing there, and he worked at the University of Helsinki under the Becler Scholarship for exchange between experts, and he studied education in Finland in particular. Agnieszka Becler, the organizer, the curator of events on education, the days of Finland's education. She organized these events. She develops and promotes and localizes best practice from Finland, Indonesia, France, Denmark, and the Finnish educational model is the best role model for strategic changes in Poland, in her opinion. And last but not least, Agata Kobylińska, the commissioner of the mayor of Łódź for education of young people, gender studies at the philosophical university named under Nicholas Copernicus. She's the core founder of the Creative Creative Solution Lab. In 2023, she was named the Forbes Women's Poland as one of 100 influential people. She studies also suicides. She is an expert in this area, and so a round of applause to her as well. The introduction will be very Finnish, so if we speak about Finland, we are going to call ourselves by our first name, which actually exemplifies the way Finland functions. Päivi, a first question to you. This will be the introduction. How do you function on a daily basis, you Finns? What is your lifestyle and what does it look like in Finland? Thank you very much for the invitation to this panel discussion. I'm surprised by the number of you in the audience. Thank you very much for this willingness to listen about Finland, about the state and education in Finland. It's my pleasure to be here. Now, as regards Finland, we are the Nordic country at the border of the EU, but when you look at the world, we are always at the top. So Finns, we are decent, not very talkative, except for me. We like sedentary lifestyle next to nature, near the nature. Nature is extremely important for us to walk in the woods or skiing in the woods. This is meditation. This is spending time together. It gives us a lot of positive emotions. We are old-fashioned to a certain extent, so we pick mushrooms in the woods. We like gardening, and we then keep them in the fridge. And it's much better because it's grown by us. It is the outcome of our own work. Finland is known for being a modern state. Digitization is very advanced, and we want to be advanced. And we are not that calm also to a certain extent. We are like Latinos of the Nordic region because we drink a lot of coffee. I'm not sure about the quality, but in quantity we drink most coffee in the region, and we love tango. We like to dance tango and sing tango. Okay, so I used to have the stereotype that you are peaceful people in the north of Europe, but I can say it's quite the opposite. There is a lot of calmness, but also there is a strive for development. Is it in all areas of life? Yes, we must say that we don't have too many commodities, raw materials, therefore people are the most important. Therefore, education is extremely important, and equality. So, from the point of view of the size, we have to take into account that education helps us. For 100 of years, we are independent. We used to be the borderland, and we used to be a poor country, but now we are called the happiest nation in the world. I'm not sure it's true, but maybe it's true. And we also count on people always, so we want to educate everyone. The principle of the Finnish educational system is that we want to guarantee good education for all, and I mean everyone, those who live outside the large cities, for those who are well off and those who are not that well off. So equality is a priority for us. And gender equality has always been important in Finland. We didn't want women not to work. We couldn't afford that. We couldn't afford women not to take part in politics. And women were the first to get suffrage rights, so they could, in 1906, they could run in elections and vote in elections, and for a great amount of time we were under the suppression of the Russian Empire. And an anecdote here, that gender equality is easier for Finns because our language doesn't distinguish between he and she. There is one pronoun for both men and women, and people ask me, so how do you know that it's a man or a woman? And I say, maybe because someone has the first name that shows that, but it doesn't matter whether this is a man or a woman, we are human beings. This is the right moment for a round of applause. Wojtek. Päivi mentioned education and equality, which are extremely important, and we are meeting today to discuss education, and you are studying it from every aspect, I must say. Therefore, the question arises, how about the educational policy of Finland from the point of view of an expert, of a researcher who writes and studies education in Finland? Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for this meeting. Päivi mentioned that equality is the fundamental of educational system in Finland. And I have heard it from Finns who are dealing with education, whether this is the representative, the highest representative of the diplomatic mission, or former ministers of education that I talk to, or teachers at schools. All of them have it internalized. Even if they internalized it because they heard that so many times, but it was deep internalization that they automatically mentioned equality. What does it mean? What can it mean? Equality as the fundamentals of the system of education. It means the access of everyone to education of the same top quality, regardless of the fact, are they migrants, who are their parents, what is their origin, low educational status or not, or these are children of the richest people, like CEO of Nokia, for example. They get the same top quality of education, and they get it from the state, because education is too important to leave it to the open market regulations and rules. So, and this competition that distorts the situation, and that there are schools for elites, there are different hierarchies, and this is major aspect. So this state doesn't allow for this free market game. It shall offer the top quality of education, which is accessible to everyone in the same way. So the state takes on itself the majority of costs that otherwise parents would have to bear for schooling for their children, and education is compulsory. Quite recently, San Marino's government extended compulsory education to the age of 16, and textbooks and the internet and accessibility of teachers of the same top qualities and infrastructure. Accessibility shall be equal, the same, something 350 kilometers outside from the North Pole, or a small village where children are brought to schools by taxis. Why taxis? Because it's cheapest, I've heard. And everywhere you have to bring children to school free of charge. Local budget says that it's cheaper to afford several taxis rather than one school bus to collect the several kids to schools. And in larger cities, the kids would get just tickets, or they cycle, for example. And if it's warmer than -20, they can cycle. We cycle in winter as well. Yeah, that's true. Speaking of education, a friend told me that she was happy when temperature was warmer than -20 in winter, because they knew they would have physical training inside the building, not outside in the football pitch. So you care about everyone, so that each member of society has the same accessibility, so that he and she are a productive element of society, because it is not a numerous population. They have very difficult conditions, especially due to climate changes and the vegetation period, 120 days in the north, 170 in the south, the lack of commodities, raw materials, so you have to take care of people because they are the main resource in the country, and education can do the job, and it is done for the benefit of every one of them and the entire society.
Let me ask you, Päivi, about the fact what Wojciech said, that equality is a priority, but you also have a key objective, something you strive for. And just like Wojciech said, it's the state that is a value. We humans, human beings, are the value. I'm not sure it sounds well, but we are in a way an investment in the future. So isn't this that at a certain stage of building your state, you decided that that would be the most important thing? Well, yes, but the thing is that we are very few Finns, so everybody is needed. And I believe we understood quite early on, already back in the 20s, that we all need to work together so that our country can survive and that we can have a happy life. So we also reached a consensus, a political one, which is very important. So it's not like there is one government which goes one direction and then there is another government that goes another way. No, the key things, the basic things for the society, I believe there is unanimous vote, also politically. So everybody shares the same line of thinking. And this pertains to education. Everybody acknowledges, everybody realizes that's important for all. So it helps. The fact that we are going further. Wojtek also mentioned the fact that 2 years ago we extended the school obligation until the age of 18. Not everybody agrees with that. Some people believe it would be better to invest in helping children who need additional help rather than extending the obligatory training. So, of course, there are different views, and different political parties may have slightly different ideas, but the main objective, to have a well-educated society, it's the same for everyone. It's also important for us that we are living in a raw climate, so we want to make appropriate conditions for people to want to stay there and to live there. So governments need to put an effort to achieve that. We want to create a state that people trust, and we want people to trust the institutions. So trust is a crucial thing for us, and when we have trust, we can find some consensus. Well, it's good that you mentioned trust, and let's put it aside. We'll come back to that. Now, Agnieszka, since we're talking about education, you have different perspectives. You look at Finland in many ways. You are active in the field of education. So, what about educational reform? How did it go? Not just in the context of all those positives, we see them, and I think you know what I'm talking about. We talk about the specific process and calmness, but tell us what is not successful, what is not working, because this is important for us to remember in the context of any changes that we want to make. Well, I will answer in a tricky way. Well, we have lots of things to learn from Finland, from the Finnish people. I believe their model of education, their system of education, is not just an export product, an official export product, but on top of that, it's quite easy to adapt it to our conditions, in particular here. So in order to answer your question from the last part onwards, what I see in Poland is that some teachers ask me, for instance, how long lessons are, or what is the structural division, like what is early education, what is later education. We have 1-3 grades. In Finland, they have 1-6. And that makes an artificial sense that we are quite similar, or nearly that we are acting nearly the same way also in academic areas. For instance, in training teachers, that is practically the same because these are our neighbors and it's a European country, while the devil lives in details. So it's hard to mention just one educational reform in Finland. I'm rather thinking about different iterations, different versions of which are tested and examined. So there is actually educational research going on. And so here I will elaborate on differences between education and pedagogy. So I will also tell you examples of how they verify everything. But the entire educational sector in Finland is a learning organization, a huge one, and they are fully and lively aware of that. I have not encountered any person who would pretend something or who would do some PR moves. Everything is completely genuine. So, and that relates to teachers who work with early education phases, or teachers who actually accept other teachers from other countries for study trips. All of those people say, well, we had some great results for a while, so apparently we had something working well. And actually I'm laughing about this because the departments of education in Finland, they know very well what is not functioning properly because they have a systemic review system, so they know well how the system works. And let me emphasize that again. And for that reason, as you see in this booklet, the educational reform started back in the 20s, but the situation was quite different back then. Both when we talk about results, the world has changed. So there's no more dilemmas whether we'll educate students until the age of 16 or 18. Okay, there's no return from there. And then the 60s followed. I will briefly go through different phases. when people starting considering fundamentals, the directions of the reform. And this is the time when they decided to introduce a 5-day school week starting in the 70s. So it's similar to Poland. I believe that as a kid, I operated in a 6-day school cycle. And in the 80s, a new theme that appeared was the approach to philosophy, or actually the general principles of education. And in Poland, we don't even have a good verb in the Polish language. We have a verb to learn, and actually it does not indicate who is the driver. In English, you have teaching and learning. I believe in Finnish there is also a distinction of whether you are the subject or the object of learning. So you see, even culturally or language-wise, there is a difference. These are two distinct processes: teaching someone and learning yourself. So later on, they focused on this socio-constructive perspective. So this is the actual noticing of the fact that somebody can do the teaching and somebody can do the learning. So it's not just an internal process. There is a learning process in everyone. And at that time, the role of a teacher is to help everyone, and this involves this individual approach and also adaptation of the curriculum to the school's program. So it's also quite important to distinguish. We have the basic curriculum in Poland, and in the Anglo-Saxon world, we have curriculum, which is a set of experiences. It's not just about the program; it's about experience as well. So now in Finland, certain subjects are one pillar of the system, but there is another, which is the skills, life skills, or transversal competencies. I'm sure the Finnish have their own term for that. So one does not exist without the other. And the two types of competencies together in 2016 were included in a very simplified table of educational requirements which need to appear in the program of education, in the cycle of education. Of course, they overlap and they happen at different stages. In the 90s, there was a very important stage, when the National Agency of Education was established. In Finland, they have a Ministry of Education and Culture. These two fields are combined. But there is also an educational agency which is responsible, among others, for the national program of the basic curriculum offered to students. And this is truly important. It's because this curriculum is taken out of the political game from the ministry. Of course, it's discussed, but the situation is clear. And the second thing is that there is a body, an authority that deals with just that. And the consequences, the positive ones, are that changes are tracked and changes are studied. So there is a big opening inventory, and then there is the research in course of implementation of, let's say, educational innovations. And then there is a closing inventory, which examines the status after a certain period. So that's what Finnish education relies on, because they are testing effectiveness of tools that education is using. So there is no wild ideas or fashions or trends. No, each educational department, so no Department of Pedagogy again, just Department of Education, educates teachers to be professional teachers, and that's a vocation of a teacher. I'm a fan of pedagogy, but if you talk to Finnish teachers, they know they have assumptions, targets, and drivers, and they are not wasting their impetus on never-ending disputes. Like what is better, Waldorf's or Montessori approach, or is the teacher following students or leading students? No, there are certain methods with their effectiveness tested, and the reason they tested those methods is that part of Finnish education is the fact that Finnish teachers do self-reflection. They examine their own methods, and there is a certain research regime. So these teachers are trained to do that during the course of their studies. Well, I could elaborate on that very much longer. I would be able to describe the competencies that teachers learn. So if we were to apply one thing quickly, I would say within 1 year, let's develop a program for the Department of Education, the pedagogy, modeled on the Finnish experience, of course, in an adapted way. And within 5 subsequent years, so 6 years in total, we would be able to have a completely different team of teachers, teachers who would have different roles in our country.
Obviously, we can say, okay, but how about the rest of the institutions? Of course, yes, that's true, but are there some shadows there? I wouldn't say so. I would say that it is the self-reflexiveness and openness of Finnish teachers, academia and scientists to learn from others. They are very curious about methods used in other countries, about how teachers work now with migration. It has turned out that there is some differentiation among students, but I didn't hear that, oh, we didn't deliver, but no. You have to study why we failed and where we failed, and we will do anything to achieve the goals that are important for us. Yes, Wojtek, please add. I'm a sociologist that studies institutions, first of all. So to begin with, in terms of these educational reforms, especially in 1960s, 70s, trade unions of teachers played a huge role. It is a privilege to be a teacher now who earns a lot in Finland. So it was the result of grassroots initiatives and trade unions' struggle to promote the status of a teacher within the system. That's why these teachers are respected by parents, by the state and the institution itself and local authorities who are in charge of schools. So it is difficult to explain to Finnish teachers that there is a curator and curator's office in Poland. And they were asking, but what is supervisory authority? Why do you need a supervisor over schools and teachers while there are ministries and at local level there are some educational departments, because they are aware of the situation. So I try to explain that we have the supervisory authority over teachers in Poland. So this is it as regards trust to teachers. And it's not a centralized system at the local level. So at schools, curricula, as you've mentioned, they are in line with the local requirements and conditions. So we have more people, therefore we need more institutions to employ people in Poland. That was a joke, of course. This is as a side note. Agata. I will have the most difficult task because everyone has spoken already. The vision of teaching and educating teachers. We had several reforms in our country. And how about Finland? There is the institution that supports teachers, and we are fighting for changes and for our education in Poland. And you are an example of this person that fights for that, and you left the sphere of education. What is your opinion? I would like this world to look like the one in Finland. And when we listened to Päivi, I was so happy that we wrote about equality that starts with education in Łódź. We developed such a document, program document, and I believe that it's a great idea. And for many years I have been working in education in kindergartens, and something you have already mentioned, that I was lacking this more practical approach, educating teachers how to work with children, how to help them when they have problems, what to do with difficult parents, and it is overlooked in our system. I remember, I know I'm talking about it, and I don't want to say something that the academic circle will dislike, but actually we try to invest in self-learning. And the situation looks as follows. I learned that there is abuse against a child, and I learned about it, and I don't know what to do in the case of an abused child. And then, in order to get this knowledge, I have to graduate from postgraduate courses, and I have just learned that in Finland, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 hours per week they have the course for teachers, and it is paid by the state, so that there is continuous learning for teachers. And what do we have in our country? We have such institutions in Łódź as well. When a teacher wants to take part in a training, but he or she has to work back after the course to make up for the classes they missed. I don't even want to count how much money I invested in myself, and I paid for everything myself, or thanks to support from different projects. So something I can do in Łódź now is to pass on this knowledge, organize workshops, training sessions. We have so many participants during our training sessions. I'm really upset. I have to refuse to some of the participants because we are doing it free of charge, so that there is no such pressure as regards teachers. And this is what I'm missing. And when we talk about education, we overlook this aspect that teachers have to be prepared for their work, that there are 10 candidates to educational department, like in medicine. And Ania Schmidt-Fitz had a panel discussion, and she raised this issue. We want teachers' job to be competitive, so that people want to be teachers. And my heart is with the importance of education at the level of kindergartens. We have to increase the agency of teachers at kindergartens, because, for example, in Polish we say that these are female kindergarten teachers. which means that, okay, she is a lady and she's a kind of a child carer. So in the past it was so, and there was a situation that they didn't have to have university degree. I graduated from a university, 5 years of MA studies, so you know what age I am. So I couldn't do BA diploma and then MA diploma. I had to go through 5 years of the university course, and I talk to young people and to teachers, and I have this wonderful role that I can talk to young people who approach me with their problems but also ideas, and I would like us to stop interfering with young people. They have fantastic ideas. They can organize wonderful events, provided that adults would not say it shouldn't be like that, you should do this, that, you should invite this person, that person. So when we start interfering, there is no agency, and it's not equality. Can you explain to me? I don't understand it. Why at secondary school we call our teachers professor, Madam Professor, and in Finland everyone calls each other by their first name, so this is equality. If I say that I call someone by their first name, it's not that I don't give him or her agency. It changes the interaction. For example, children are sitting at their desks at school. We demand certain financial resources. Barta Krosiak, who is sitting here, is a wonderful young teacher, and he showed me his classroom, and there are not rows of desks, and for several hours I'm looking at the back of the pupil sitting in front of me. We don't have the contact and social context. You can put desks in a circle so that everyone sees each other. So this emotional and social competence, I believe they have to be one of the fundamentals of us building the future of the generation. So sometimes they are learning useless things which are not practical, and we all know that children think that milk is produced at a shop. If a kid lives in a large city and they have never seen a cow, they watch advertisements, commercials, and they think that milk is produced by a shop. I am a fan myself when I read that children are taught how to cook, how to sew, and so on. And in our case, we don't offer practical skills, cooking, sewing. A boy and a girl will do cooking and use a hammer and a nail, both a girl and a boy. I don't understand why in our country equality elicits some demonic feelings, that when they hear the word equality, they think it's a monster that is going to eat our children. So we actually allowed for such a situation that there is control of this language that is the basis for how we say things. And I will admit I have also not always been successful. During the previous government here in Poland, I had taught sexual education. I had to call it education against violence, because when it's against violence, they feel okay. But if it's sexual education, they accuse me of sexualizing children, so to say. So we have to take into account the language and the way we discuss things and different topics. There is a long way ahead of us, and many initiatives, organizations shall join efforts. and we have to discuss it. Not that only Szymczyk and Kobylińska is always unhappy with something and protests. There shall be more of us, and we have to speak up. I'm about to finish. It is important, and we can see so many of you here. Who is a teacher? Just out of curiosity, but not all of you are teachers, and it doesn't matter whether you are a teacher or not. I can see that not on the other side of the globe that there is a country where this system works. And we have to be responsible, and we have to talk about such things so that the word equality doesn't elicit in some people, at least in some men, some negative feelings. Gender was accused of various things in Poland as well. Agnieszka, I can see you want to add something, so please say a few words, and then Päivi about the culture of trust. We actually mentioned it several times, and then Wojciech will also comment on it because it is based on new publication partially, and I will then read part of an excerpt from this publication.
Okay, I will say one sentence, a longer one. Well, you mentioned the term school space. I'm not able to describe all the aspects of the Finnish model or Finnish policy, but the role of a teacher there is a healthily understood role of a facilitator, a well-trained human being, a safe person in the school reality. And school space is also one of the factors which favor education, so learning. And the learning in Finland is focused on children. So when you mentioned school benches, school tables, and desks, it's a completely different approach to space. For them, space is a safety factor, and also is the area where it's possible to learn. So that's the reason why you come to school. So. Okay, and now a very short half of a sentence. Let's not think, and I'm referring to the models, to convictions, cultural and language formations. Let's not think that we have a long educational reform ahead of us. I'm really frozen and terrified when I imagine that adults believe they have a lot of time to reform education, and kids keep going to school, and we do things to them, and we don't even know why, and then we are surprised. We have to put an end to this. We need to follow good examples. We need to apply a model that is effective, and we need to adapt it and do it quickly. Okay, let me read a piece. So, compared to an average for OECD countries, which is 40%, the Finnish government is supported by 2/3 of all citizens, which worries the government because it's a big decrease during the last decade. There was a study conducted in 2021 which said that the Finnish people trust in all the institutions, and they give most trust to the educational system. This is 78% of trust. The reason I mention this is because in Poland we have a huge crisis in trust towards public institutions. So you mentioned the culture of trust. Trust seems to be important to you. Well, yes, it is. I don't know what to say. I need to say that nowadays trust is now reduced. I believe the time is such that the political parties and the polarization is quite visible in Finland, and it affects the functioning of different institutions. But I can give you an example from a neighborhood. When a government changes in Finland, whether it's the prime minister or the president, that does not affect the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And there is no influence on ambassadors because we are all civil servants. We are not politically nominated. We keep working the way as we did before, and we serve all governments in Finland. So I believe this is very important. There is a continuity, there is no sharp movements, and I believe that this will continue to be like this in Finland because this relies on trust. It's not as the situation is not as good as it used to be, so it means we need to be critical. It's not like all the institutions are working perfectly. There needs to be some reflection, some feedback, some constructive criticism. But this system needs to train people who are able to do critical thinking, and this is important in Finland. And let me say something unrelated, well, somewhat related. The educational system in Finland is not based on competition. We do not compare children. There is no competition to be the best. We don't want to train another Einstein. We want all children to have solid grounds, to have a good life. And we want all children to explore their skills and to explore their potential. Not everybody has to be a genius. Not everybody is great at math, but everybody has some strengths. And it's important for teachers to identify those strengths and to support those children. So that when they grow up, they become people who have trust in themselves and who know what their strengths are. We want to create people who have life that give them satisfaction. So that's important. And we do a lot of research, actually competition has been studied. Competition is not good. It's not good for learning, it's not good for children, it doesn't contribute anything. We need to focus on other things. Wojtek, how about you? I mentioned your publication, so please tell me about the culture of trust. Well, speaking of competition, one of the elements which is most visible in terms of differences is a lack of any rankings, any comparisons between schools. Imagine in Poland, we, for instance, forbid creating rankings to Perspektywy weekly, or for instance, that nobody can compare high schools or primary schools to one another. I'm all for it, but it would be quite difficult because there are many people who draw benefits from the fact that schools compare one another. Well, what is the public interest? What is the public benefit out of that process? I don't want you to respond. I'm just pointing to a process. Yes, we all know what we are talking about. Yes, we know what the consequences are of comparisons. Now, speaking about trust in public institutions in Finland, this is a sustainable phenomenon lasting for decades, so the biggest challenge in making systemic changes based on the Finnish model is that, well, we can try to model, to follow certain elements of the system. We can try to introduce specific programs on our own. Perhaps it should be bottom-up initiative. But in order to copy a Finnish educational system, we would have to have Finnish teachers, Finnish parents. It's quite important because trust in the state or trust in institutions. I saw it in one of the schools that I visited some 10 years ago. It was shortly after a tragic event in one of Finnish schools. And I asked them, why didn't you set up a monitoring system, CCTV? And they said, because our young people have a right to privacy. And I asked, what about the parents? Didn't they believe that that should be something, because of a tragedy in another school. And they told me, well, that other school had a monitoring system. Well, it is not a preventive measure. It helps you find the perpetrator or identify the perpetrator, but it doesn't have a preventative nature. Actually, it has a negative effect. People who feel observed, which includes not just video but also audio, then it has negative consequences. And you see, the parents had trust in the system. So even though the system has not been installed, they knew that the people who took care of their children knew what they were doing. And so you see, we don't have Finnish teachers, Finnish parents, and we don't have Finnish students. There was a study by an American sociologist from Helsinki University who found that the system which relies on trust is successful because Finnish students actually comply with the requirements of their authorities. And also there is a lot of trust in students, which is enabled by the culture, trust-based culture. You can actually Google the concept. I wrote about it in my book. But I believe trust is a foundation, an absolute foundation, which makes it all sustainable. Well, the time is running. The time flies. I believe I planned too many different topics, and we will not be able to discuss everything. We just highlighted some subjects. I wanted to talk about the Kiva example, but I would love to encourage you to do some reading about the Kiva program, which is about preventing violence. But we are here happy to talk to you unofficially after the panel. But now I would like each of you to say one sentence. What can we learn from Finns and the Finnish system of education that could give us strength in Poland and would change our perspective at education? Let's start from the other side. Okay, Agata. For me, that would be equality. This approach which treats everybody as a subject, as partners. I remember from my experience that trust is built on authenticity. And when we draw from good sources, I'm almost done. Whenever I enter some workshop space, even if it's with students, I want them to talk to me by my first name, and people think it's not a quality workshop because I'm learning during the workshop. So if we are to learn there together, I'm responsible for creating some safe space and in which everyone is equal, but we have completely different experiences. Two sentences, please. 1 minute, 30 seconds. First of all, training teachers. Then second, in Poland, we should think about the fact how incredibly different fields advanced, psychology, coaching, business, whatever good stuff was developed, we can draw from it. As educational facilities, you can draw from all possible sources. And three, which is the encompassing one, we in Poland, we are able to adapt, and that was the intention of the legislators in the 90s. We can have the basic curriculum and then develop school curricula. So this is the Finnish framework, Finnish approach. And so if schools can do anything, and yes, they can do things, they can use the Finnish principle of creating independent learning. Wojciech. I represent a group of interest that is the field of education. In universities, I can say that the first step to solve any problem is to realize there is one. And the first step to solve the problem is to make a thorough analysis and a study of what the problem is and how we can prevent that situation. And now our expenditure on education is on the level of 1%, so I don't see a very optimistic outlook for the system of education. So I don't believe evidence-based policy can be introduced, which is introducing changes based on a thorough diagnosis. Well, I'd like to invite all of you to Finland. Okay, let's go. So that you can see what it's like there and how it's functioning. And I would like you to find, as much information as possible if you're interested in what we do. We are not perfect. We continuously have to think about the future as well. So yes, a reform is not a one-off event. It's a process we need to continuously improve and perfect. And children is the best what is there in the world. So we need to give them good care. Thank you very much. Yes, now I'd like to finish this panel with one quotation, which is also a title of a publication. There is no equity without quality, there is no quality without trust. My guests, Agnieszka, Becler, Agata, Kobylińska, Päivi, Laine and Wojciech, Woźniak.
Jedzą kanapki z kawiorem.
Nadzwyczajna kasa.
Obrażanie dziennikarzy telewizji polskiej.
Chodzi o działania polityczne.
Przygotowanie ofiar dla pedofilów.
Für Deutschland.
TVP Info. Włącz się na nowo.
Radość, nadzieja, życie, wyzwanie, pasja, pamięć, zaufanie, pokój, jedność. Słowa tworzą świat. Polskie Radio. Źródło wiarygodnych informacji.
Plany biznesowe powstają z marzeń. Dlatego nie ma dwóch takich samych firm. Jedni chcą działać na całym świecie. Innym cały świat mieści się w dłoni. Sukces biznesu to nie tylko jego wielkość, ale też szczęście, jakie przynosi ludziom. PKO Bank Polski.
Uwielbiam szycie w sieci. Wczoraj podszyłem się pod wnuczka, wieczorem uszyłem intrygę na apce randkowej, a dziś planuję grubymi nićmi szyte oszustwo z promocją. Tak się szyje.
Na oszustów są sposoby. Zapoznaj się z poradami ekspertów na niedajsiepodszyć.pl.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Polskie Radio.
Jedynka.
Rodzina spółek Pelion to 12 000 osób pracujących w ponad 300 spółkach w Polsce, Szwecji, Wielkiej Brytanii i na Litwie. Jesteśmy liderem w branży ochrony zdrowia. Od 1990 roku dbamy o długość i jakość życia. Pracować z nami możesz w jednym z 7 obszarów.
Zapraszamy do Trójki. Od nowa.
Trójka. Program Trzeci Polskiego Radia.
Czy wytrzymasz klockowe tortury ze stoickim spokojem? Czy w twardych negocjacjach zachowasz zimną krew? Czy poddasz się dobrowolnej eksmisji ze swojego łóżka? Brawo! Test na obecność serca zaliczony. To znaczy, że ty też możesz być rodzicem zastępczym. Dowiedz się jak na testserca.pl.